Shadows outside the window. It was winter, January 2nd. The city had fallen silent, except for the occasional crackling of frozen branches or muffled footsteps in the snow. Teresa, a 16-year-old girl, was left home alone. Her parents had gone to visit relatives in a neighboring town. But she didn't want to go. She preferred to enjoy a quiet evening with a book and a cup of hot tea. As she sat down by the window to look out onto the quiet street, she noticed something strange. On the corner, under an old lamp, a figure stood motionless. It was tall, wrapped in a coat, and its face was lost in the shadows. Teresa squinted her eyes, but the person didn't move. After a while, she thought it was just a passerby, maybe someone waiting for a car or a friend. But there was something strange about the figure. It didn't move even after a few minutes. It didn't look away. It seemed to be looking straight at her house. Teresa closed the curtains, tried not to think about it, and returned to the living room. She turned on the television to distract herself from the unpleasant feeling, but she still felt like someone was watching her. After half an hour, she went to look at the window again. This time, the figure was closer, standing right in front of her fence. For a second, panic seized her. She quickly locked the door, checked the windows, and tried to calm down. It's just a coincidence, she thought to herself. However, when she stood at the window for the third time, the world outside looked different. The street, previously illuminated by the orange light of the lamps, was dark. The bulbs had gone out. An unnatural silence spread outside. There was no wind, not even the crackling of snow. And what was most frightening, the figure had disappeared. Teresa breathed a sigh of relief, but only for a moment. She began to notice strange details. A faint scratching sound came from the kitchen, as if something was touching the wall. Then she heard footsteps, right on the porch. Maybe it's just the wind, she thought, even though she knew wind couldn't have footsteps that heavy. She tried to call her mother, but her phone didn't work. No signal. When she tried again, instead of a ring, she heard only static. Suddenly there was a knock. Soft, intermittent, but urgent. It was coming from the kitchen window. As Teresa got closer, she saw something that froze her blood. Someone pressed a hand against the glass. It was pale, with long nails, as if it belonged to someone who had never been out in the daylight. She quickly ran to her room and locked the door. The entire house suddenly went dark. The lights flickered on and off. There was only darkness. From the hallway beyond the door, she heard soft footsteps, accompanied by occasional knocks on the walls. "Who are you?" she cried out desperately, but there was no answer. Instead, she heard deep, whispering sounds. They didn't make sense, but they sounded like something old, ancient. In the morning, when her parents returned, the house was deserted. All the doors were locked from the inside, but Teresa was nowhere to be found. Her phone was on the table, its display showing a single message. "They're watching you. They're still watching you." The police found footprints in the snow around the house, leading to the woods. But they disappeared in the middle of the clearing, as if the person who left them had simply ceased to exist. A few weeks later, neighbors began talking about strange phenomena. Someone saw shadows moving between the lamps. Another heard footsteps on the porch, even though no one was there. And one elderly woman swore that at night she had seen a tall figure on the sidewalk, not moving, looking directly at her window. To this day, no one knows what happened to Teresa. But people on her street no longer close their curtains. They are afraid that if they did, they might miss who was looking into their house.